Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. My name is Emily Davina, and in today's video, I have Easter and Spring children's book haul for you. Now that spring is here, I wanted to make sure that we had some children's books about spring and also some books about Easter. It's actually Holy Week this week. I wanted our kids to have books about Easter that they could get acquainted with the Easter story and different Easter traditions as well. So I'm going to start off with the Easter books and then move into the spring books. And I hope you enjoyed today's video. Starting off with our Easter books, we've got Easter Sunday, The Berenstain Bears by Mike Berenstain. I bought this one off of Amazon. I couldn't find this one at our library. Basically, in this story, the Bear family goes to church on Easter Sunday. One page where they briefly introduce the Easter story, and then afterwards, the Cubs, they do an Easter egg hunt at church. Though it's a little bit different, this Easter egg hunt, they're actually collecting little toys for Noah's Ark, and then they make a Noah's Ark scene afterwards. One thing I will say that I found interesting reading different Easter books is that you're going to see a variety of perspectives in these books. The way they approach the topic of Easter eggs, for example, in one book, it referenced one way to view Easter eggs, and another book will view it another way. And there's just varying perspectives in these books, which obviously I didn't know before I borrowed them, but I actually think it's a good thing. We don't want to shy away from introducing different perspectives and different traditions, and I think in the form of story, I think it's a helpful way to introduce different topics with kids. Like if they have questions about different things, then we can actually address those as they come up, or we can expand on a topic. But anyways, this one has a certain view on Easter eggs. I would encourage you go through the different books, see how you would explain things to your kids, how you would answer questions that they might come to you with. We don't mind parsing through the different traditions and the way different families will do things. I didn't have any issue with this book. I thought it was kind of interesting how they approach it. I'm not necessarily saying it's the same way that we would approach it, but it at least opens up the floor for discussion about some traditions that we have. If anything, I think it's good for us as parents, as adults, to think through critically, why do we participate in certain traditions? Why do we do these things? Because our kids are going to ask, and they want to know the answers too, and they also want to understand why things are the way that they are. And so I think it's healthy and good to have those conversations with our kids. Moving on, we have Peter Rabbit's Happy Easter. So this is kind of a funny story about Peter Rabbit, always the naughty little rabbit that he is. This book is written by Grace Macaron. Peter Rabbit, he decides that he wants to impress his mom. So he goes out and collects a bunch of eggs from different people's hen houses, but they are not his eggs. So he's essentially stealing eggs. And he goes home. He has a mishap where he spills bottles of paint onto the eggs. And then his mom basically said, this is like a nice thought, but you need to return the eggs to all the people. So he takes the eggs and he returns them, and then the kids in the neighborhood find the eggs. That's how he got the name and title of being the Easter Bunny. So I thought it was just kind of funny. There is one page that that did concern me. It had nothing to do with the Easter Bunny, but it's just on one of the pages. It says, Peter was determined to do something wonderful for his mother so she would see what a good little bunny he really was. Then she would love him more than she loved his sisters. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail never seemed to do anything wrong. And so that was the page that I was concerned about. I was like, oh, I don't think that he should feel like he needs to earn his mother's love and that his mom would love him more than his sisters. So basically, I skipped the one sentence. That just seems like a problematic way to view love. So anyways, I did omit a sentence in there. So obviously, I would say in these books, it's not like I'm signing off on these books like 100% I agree with everything in these books. No, for sure not. It was a cute story. I really just didn't really like that one part where he was worried about if his mom was going to love him more than his siblings. This one is The Legend of the Easter Egg by Lori Wahlberg. So this one was at the library. In my previous video about Christmas and winter books, I bought The Legend of the Candy Cane around Christmas time. So this is from the same series. And it does introduce the same man who's the candy man of the town. This little boy, his sister is sick with scarlet fever, and his parents send him to stay with the Candyman and his wife, I guess, for a few days so that he doesn't get sick as well. And it's leading up to Easter. And so he's processing his sister being sick. At the same time, he's learning about the biblical Easter account leading up to the crucifixion and the resurrection. It goes through that story, and the little boy finds hope in that. And he also finds hope for that his sister would get better. Then this book also explains the tradition of the Easter egg, and which is interesting because the other book like basically writes off Easter eggs, the Berenstain book, but this one gives an example of, you know, Easter eggs and like what they can symbolize even as Christians. You compare the chicken breaking out of the egg to Jesus conquering death and coming out of the tomb, which was interesting. I don't think I grew up hearing the correlation between the Easter egg, Jesus conquering death, and coming out of the tomb, like new life. Maybe I did hear that growing up in church. I don't really remember that. I thought that was an interesting way, another perspective to look at the Easter eggs. I've found that my kids enjoy this one, at least my son, he's 3.5. He enjoys this book and he's asked for it multiple times. I have Clifford's Happy Easter by Norman Bridwell. I always liked Clifford as a kid. I think because the little girl's name is Emily Elizabeth, so I just liked that her name was Emily. Clifford is a classic board book, and it's a short story. It is essentially about Emily Elizabeth has a dream about Easter eggs and dyeing Easter eggs, and she dreams that Clifford is being dyed many different colors, and then she wakes up from the dream a little bit flustered, and then they have an Easter egg hunt, and it's just a short little book. This book is similar to that book. It's Llama Easter Egg by Anna Dewdney. Okay, we do love Llama in this house. But when I saw that they had an Easter Llama book, I was like, yes, we'll pick that up from the library. It's super short. Llama's going on an Easter egg hunt with his friends, and then they find a little bird hatching from their egg, and Llama Easter egg. Really just short and sweet book. From the library, I also picked up Berenstain Bear's Easter Parade. Now this book, I'm going to say between the two Berenstain Bear books, I like the other book better. I think my kids like this one better though. In this one, the Bear family is entering a contest for the best dressed family over Easter and have to go shopping for new outfits because all their outfits are old. They end up winning the Easter parade. The only thing I didn't really love about this particular story is that Brother Bear is pretty much just complaining the whole story because he doesn't want to get a new outfit. He doesn't want to go shopping. And like a lot of the sentences are like, and brother sighed and rolled his eyes, or and dad sighed and rolled his eyes. I'm like, oh, it's not my favorite attitude for the character to have, but hey, we all have grumpy days, so it's just a grumpy day for Brother Bear in this story. At the end of it, he's happy that they actually win the parade, and he feels good in his new outfit. So it's just one of those. It's one of those type of stories. From the library, I found A Child's Story of Easter by Etta Wilson. So I think this is one of the only biblical Easter account of the story of Jesus leading up to the crucifixion and resurrection that I was able to find at the library. So when I saw they had it, I was like, yes, I will pick it up. I like the illustrations. It's definitely an older book. I find that it does a really great job at explaining the Easter story. Palm Sunday. You know, it doesn't shy away from the hard parts of the Easter story. So I appreciate that it actually finds a way to delve into even the harder aspects of the Easter story. So they have the Last Supper, washing the feet. They even have the Garden of Gethsemane in here and Jesus being arrested by the soldiers. It even has Jesus carrying the cross. It doesn't have a page of Jesus actually on the cross. It has the woman at the tomb when Jesus is risen. And it does have Jesus appearing to the disciples after he's resurrected. I like this story. I think based on your denomination, on the last page, I'll just let you read it. I don't know if you can read that. You know, you may have differences of opinion on that last sentence. So do with that what you will. But all in all, I have enjoyed this book, and my son has asked for this one multiple times, and I just think it's been a good way for him to gain a fuller picture of the Easter story. I will say that we have been also reading from the Jesus Storybook Bible. There's a few stories basically leading up to the crucifixion and then the resurrection in sequence in the Jesus Storybook Bible. We've been reading a lot of those stories this past few weeks. I think that's also been really helpful to help my kids get a greater understanding of the biblical account of Jesus. So this book I bought on Amazon. This is The Garden, the Curtain, and the Cross. I mean, technically, maybe not truly only just an Easter story, because it starts, you know, we're starting in the Garden of Eden. We're explaining how the fall and how sin came into the world. It's explaining Jesus' birth. It talks about Jesus' death on the cross and how Jesus bore our sin. And it talks about the resurrection. And then it briefly touches on the new heavens and the new earth. It's quick, it's short, it's a board book. I think there is a longer version of this book. Was trying to buy the picture book version of this book, and I ended up buying the board book version. Very basic breakdown of the gospel story and how Jesus makes us friends with God. I appreciate this book. I think it's just a good resource to have. It's like some days you have time to read this whole full story. Has more details, but this one is like just more of an overview. Over here we have Jan Brett, The Easter Egg. I'm learning that I love Jan Brett. I think I've picked up so many of her books so far. I think I have another one of her books as well in this haul. It's just so cute. I mean, my kids love these books too. I love the illustrations. They're so classic, they're so beautiful, and I think she's a wonderful storyteller. I also feel like my kids get great vocabulary out of these books, just exposure to fantastic vocabulary. And honestly, it's just a beautiful story. We're talking about Easter eggs, but Bunny like really displays some sacrificial love because he takes care of a fallen bird's egg and helps hatch it. I think this is just a lovely story. So that's it for all my Easter books, and so we're going to be moving on to some spring books next. So books about spring. I'm really happy that spring is here. It's been a long winter. I wouldn't even say it's been a very cold winter where we live. Usually we get more snow, but it's been a kind of gray winter. This year was kind of dark and it was rough for me. The first book we have is a great book. It's called Bee, a Peek Through book, and it's by Britta Teckentrup. And it's really cute because each page has a cutaway in each page, and it follows this bee through the forest as the bee is pollinating the different flowers. I just think this was a great book to just start exploring the topic of what do bees do and why bees are important and how they help us pollinate all the plants. They even go back to the beehive on one page. There's one fun page where they have like all the bees, and there's like many cutouts on this page. So my kids really have liked this book. I think this book has sparked an interest in my son about bees, because now he's asking me pretty much every day. He's like, how do bees make honey? It's cool to see him take interest in that, because now I want to dig a little deeper into bees. So the next two books are by the same author, and this is the first book. It's called Plant the Tiny Seed by Christy Matheson. And this is a fun book. It gives your kids some directions on each page. So you start off with planting the little seed. It says like press the seed and count to 4. So my kids, you know, they press down on the page and they think they're, you know, making things happen. It tells them to wiggle their fingers to add some water. We got some sprouts. We got some rain. We got flowers. So this was fun. I really like this book. If your kids love to follow like simple directions and they love to get involved and touch the book, this is a fun one. My kids really like this. They also really love this one. I think this might be my favorite spring book that I picked up. This one also by Christy Matheson, which is The Hidden Rainbow. And I like this one because I feel like you can cover multiple areas. So you can teach multiple things at once just by reading this book, which I really, really like. Lately, I feel like we've done a lot of letters, we've done a lot of counting, but I feel like I haven't done as much with colors. It's just good to practice colors as well. Learning about colors, so each page will have corresponding flower, corresponding color, and then it will also have a bee or bees on each page. So this one has 2 bees, so it'll ask you to count the bees. So you can also do counting along with learning colors. You have green, and the clovers, and you count all the bees. And at the same time, you're also learning about spring and flowers growing. And also at the end of this book has like 2 pages where it just describes bees and what they do, how they pollinate the flowers, why we should help the bees, and how it actually talks about how thanks to pollination we get all these lovely fruits. This book is just comprehensive. We're learning about spring, we're learning about colors, we're learning how to count, we're learning how bees help us. And it's like, I feel like this is a perfect book. If there was such a thing, I would buy this book, is what I'm saying. Curious George, Curious About Spring. First Curious George book that I've read with the kids. It just talks about different things about spring. So we have April showers, and it's poems. We have poems about different things about spring. Spring cleaning. We have one about building a nest. We have this one. We haven't read this one so much yet, but it's Everyone Can Learn to Ride a Bicycle by Chris Rashka. The illustrations are interesting. It's definitely a different style, a unique style. Almost a little bit more whimsical, I guess. And it's just about this little girl learning how to ride a bike and what it's like. My son is like, he has a little Strider bike and he's been asking about it in the wintertime. When can I ride my bike? So now that spring is here, we can actually get out more, and yeah, it's just fun. A fun little book about learning to ride your bike. Flowers by Charlotte Gillian. A book with real pictures of all the different flowers that they introduce. It tells you the parts of the flower. And honestly, I learned some flowers because I'm not super well versed in the different kinds of flowers. Then you have some more like interesting tropical flowers in there. I thought this was just a good reference book, really, to actually see real flowers, real seeds. And I do have another Jan Brett book, Town Mouse and Country Mouse. And this one, I don't know if it's really about spring. I thought it fit, you know. It's talking about these 2 mouse couples, the mice that live in the town and the mice that live in the country, and how they both swap places because the town mice are like, oh, wouldn't it be so nice to live in the country? And the country mice are like, oh, it would be so nice to live in the town. Realize that they actually like their life. They like their home more than they like staying at the other person's homes. And the final book I have is The Ants Go Marching. It's just the song. And you just see the ants. And it tells you to lift up your fingers for each of the pages. So that's another book. Those are all the books that I picked up from the library. I think there are probably a few that I had on hold that I missed the hold on. I think there's 2 more that I put on hold that have just come in now. What I do for these hauls, I have one day where I just put a bunch of books on hold, and they slowly start trickling in, and I just have to keep going back to the library and picking them up. That is everything that I have for you today. If you celebrate Easter, I hope you have a lovely Easter with your family and your loved ones, and I'll see you all in the next video.